How's it going, everybody? Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer here. Wrestling Observer Radio, April 2nd, 2018. Figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. We're 1 week away from WrestleMania. Talk about some of that stuff later on here today. Raw, of course, coming up tonight.
6.5, 7-hour show.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. 5 hours potentially for the main show, 2-hour pre-show. It's going to be a lot of wrestling that day, a lot of wrestling that weekend.
A lot of wrestling all week, yeah.
Let's start with this Khabib deal, then we'll get into all the pro wrestling. It's Khabib and Max Halloway coming up. Tony Ferguson is out.
Tony Ferguson on Friday was doing media. He was in the Fox Sports parking lot. He was walking in the parking lot. This is like the typical story. This guy's been training hard, beating his body up. He's walking in the parking lot. He sees a guy who he hasn't seen in a while, so he pivots really quick, trips, falls down, and tears his LCL, which is usually not that bad of an injury, but he tore it so bad that there was no way he could fight. So the fight was off, and they convinced Max Halloway, who suffered a broken ankle in like 2 months ago. 2 months ago, he suffered a broken ankle. And he, at first, we had heard that he wasn't going to be able to come back until the fall because of the broken ankle. Then it was like July was pushing it. Now he's fighting on April 7th. I mean, he wasn't even on the July. He first asked to fight Brian Holloway in July and then started thinking about it. And it was like, well, July's rushing things. Now he's fighting April 7th, which is, obviously the deal is they're offering him a ton of money, and it is an incredible opportunity for him because it's going to be for the lightweight championship. The winner's going to be the champion. He has a chance. He's going into this with no camp. He agreed to the fight earlier today. UFC, I guess, found out this morning about the injury or the fact that Ferguson would be out. I think they probably knew about the injury on Friday, but they found out this morning that Ferguson would be out. They immediately came to the conclusion, or, I don't know if there were any other ideas, but Holloway was the main one. And I'm sure they offered him like an incredible amount of money to do this. And the whole deal is that he has the chance to become the second fighter in history after Conor McGregor to hold championships in 2 weight divisions at the same time if he wins. And it would pretty much, there's no guarantees of this, but in theory, if he would win, not only be lightweight champion, but he would face Conor McGregor, which is a giant fight. So the upside for him in that sense, for fighting, if he were to win, is enormous because, you fight Conor McGregor, your name gets huge. If he beats Conor McGregor, if he got that far and beats Conor McGregor, your name gets even bigger. You become a big drawing card, 26 years old, and he could be, it's life-changing. And even this fight is like going to be real big money apparently for him. But if he loses, it's like, well, he's still going to be featherweight champion. People are going to understand that he lost because he's, Khabib's an animal anyway, and he moved up a weight class, and he took the fight with, no training camp whatsoever. So it's like, yeah, his odds are that he is going to lose this fight, especially if it goes any distance because he's on a broken ankle. What kind of cardio is this guy going to have? It's not just that he's not done a fight camp. It's that he's had a broken ankle. So it's like, how quick before he gets tired. I think he's got. Stylistically, Holloway is a really interesting opponent for Khabib because he's a much better stand-up fighter than Khabib is. And he's got great takedown defense. So an in-shape Holloway, even though he's and he's also big in the sense that he can fight 155. Even though he's been fighting 145, it's a big cut for him to make 145. So it's actually probably a pretty big cut for him right now to make 155. But so I don't know that, again, I don't pick anybody above Khabib Nurmagomedov right now after the last couple of fights. But from a stylistic standpoint, Holloway is an interesting opponent, and I think it's a great fight. Under these circumstances, it's a little bit different. It's like Holloway has to get to him fast, and he's probably got to finish him in the first round, or he's going to be in a lot of trouble. Maybe not, but if he can, he still has a chance to win. He's clearly going to be the underdog, though. But you're mitigating risks aside from the fact that he could get absolutely mauled, which does happen with Khabib. His risks aren't nearly as high as potential rewards. So I can sort of see him taking the fight, but man, he's coming off a broken ankle. 2 months after a broken ankle with no camp against Khabib Nurmagomedov. Oh man, I don't know. Bisping did knock out Luke Rockhold, so we've seen firsthand stuff that never happened, should never happen, makes no sense, but it sometimes happens. Upsets happen, and it'd be a big upset for Holloway to win. But Holloway is an awesome, awesome fighter, so you can't rule him out. And I guess from his perspective, it all made sense to him because he accepted it. He wasn't under, he didn't have to accept it. So the Holloway-Brian Ortega fight that had been talked about, that looks like that will be delayed, perhaps for a while, because if Holloway wins and then fights against McGregor, then probably going to have to put Ortega against somebody for the interim featherweight title or something to do with Ortega, because it may be a long, long time before Ortega's going to have to sit around for a long, long time waiting. If by some chance, by some miracle, the guy, wins, and then if he wins twice, if he beats McGregor as well, I'm figuring that he's probably going to be fighting somebody like Diaz or somebody in a giant money fight, and poor Ortega is going to be lost in the shuffle. So and probably get an interim. They'll probably do an interim title fight for him. Of course, we're getting way, way, way ahead of ourselves, but yeah, it's. And then with Ferguson, Dana White said that he will. This was the fourth time Ferguson and Khabib have been booked. I think twice. So I think this is the third time that one or the other was injured before the fight. So it's, I think, 2 Ferguson injuries, 1 Khabib injury, and then the other one was Khabib missing weight and getting hospitalized and the whole fight falling apart, which was the last time. So this fight is, there's never been a fight that's been announced and postponed 3 times. This is the 4th time. So this one is evidently cursed. And Dana White said, and remember those Dana White never, ever, evers, how those go. He said that he would never book Ferguson against Khabib. The problem is if Ferguson goes and wins this, if Khabib wins the fight and he's not fighting Conor McGregor next, there are other options than Ferguson, but Ferguson is clearly the best option for the fight. And even if he were to beat Conor, Ferguson may keep winning and still be the best option for the fight again. So I'm chalking up this never ever to be about as never ever as the fact that John Jones would never ever main event again. Anderson Silva would have to fight on an undercard because he was having boring fights, and all these other things, that women would never be in the UFC. It's never ever doesn't mean a lot, and I think in this case there's just too many things that can happen. But I'm sure right now he's going like, how can we book this fight? It's the 4th time we put money into it, and it's fallen apart 4 times now. So I get where he's coming from when he says it, but it may still be the right fight to make down the line. There's really a good chance. There's actually a very good chance it would be.
What's the Canelo Alvarez story?
Well, he's failed 2 tests for glenbuterol, and there was a really good article by Ian Kidd on Bloody Elbow about this. It's stuff that we've talked about before. You cannot prove what happened. He had a very low concentration of glenbuterol in his system, and he was in Guadalajara, training in Guadalajara, and Mexican meat can often be tainted with glenbuterol. So one of the things people are going is like, there's 2 tests, not 1. But the tests were 3 days apart. So, the idea that he failed one test and then you test him again 3 days later, he's probably going to fail that second test. So I think that the news of the second failure, when I first heard the news of the second failure and other people did, it was like, oh my God, how stupid could he be? He failed another test, after the first one. But it's like he didn't even know the results of the first test when the second test came. And it was only 3 days later. So I consider that essentially like the same test. But if this was UFC and this was USADA, they have, and USADA, and I'm not just for fighters, but athletes in general. If you fail for glenbuterol in Mexico and you can prove or give, good evidence that you ate meat in Mexico or China, one of those two countries, and your concentration of glenbuterol is relatively low in the test, you're going to get off because that's the reality of those places, that the meat is tainted with that. And I've heard people go, well, Canelo's got a lot of money and he should have his beef imported, and it's like, I'm going to guess from this point on, if Canelo's in Mexico, he's going to have his beef imported, but you can't, I think there's like a real good chance, just because of the public outcry and people completely not understanding the story, that he may get a minor suspension in this May 5th fight. The May fight may be moved to September because of his suspension. But that's completely ridiculous. There's no reason. There's with the concentration that he had and the fact that he was in training in Guadalajara, and in Guadalajara when he was tested, there's no reason that he should be penalized at all. And we'll see. Nevada hasn't made a ruling, but there's a lot of stuff that people have read and stuff that at commission meetings, or commission notes that lead people to believe that the fight's going to get postponed to September. So these commissions and reporters as well, they really need to learn this drug thing because it's a big story. It affects everything. And a lot of people are just, he's failed the test, he's got to be suspended. And it's like, for eating a steak, you know what I mean? That's essentially what happened here.
All right, moving to pro wrestling, we got to talk about Will Ospreay. It's coming off the Sakura Genesis show, and
there's actually a lot of guys. Half that company seems, a lot of the Americans are really, really banged up, and Will Ospreay earlier today wrestled against Marty Scurll. They had an unbelievably great match. And even before the spot, I was worried about Will Ospreay and his neck anyway, just because of a lot of moves that were going on. But he did a Spanish fly off the apron, which even like at best, that move sounds crazy. Off the apron, not like onto the apron. It was like off the apron to the floor. So as he's flipping over and he's supposed to go to the floor, he bangs his head on the apron and he comes up and he's got this big gash on his forehead and he's bleeding all over the place. And the match is still going. The doctor comes out and the doctor's checking him. And he's telling the doctor that he's fine. And he thought he was fine. And he's not fine, but he thought he was at the time. And he kept going, and he's covered in blood, and it's just becoming... It reminded me of the Fujinami Maeda match, which if you've never seen it, it's on New Japan World. It was one of the best matches of the 80s, and it was just a legendary match in Japan where Fujinami was just bleeding like crazy and kept going, and that's what happened here. And Will kept going, and Will pulled out of every Marty Scurll move, broken fingers, the whole bit, just incredible match. And about 31 minutes into the match, he hits the Os Cutter, gets the pin. Honestly, I thought it was the best match so far this year. But when the match was over and he got to the dressing room, he was in excruciating pain. And he's going to have to go see a doctor and find out exactly what's wrong. It could be something really bad. Excruciating pain to me doesn't sound good because he's always in pain anyway. And it was, what can you say? I've seen the guy only has one gear, and he's working matches. Like, this guy works matches, you know, in front of 400 people all over the world, you know, and will do, you know, 85 to 90% of what he did in this match with Marty Scurll, which was, of course, at Sumo Hall, you know, the second biggest show so far this year for New Japan, sold out crowd. And this one was one where, you know, they were out there trying to have it, you know, the match of the year, and you could argue that they did. But man, you know, it's what we always say about Marty Scurll. I mean, it's if you took the 5 worst moves out of this match, it would still be a match of the year candidate. It'd still be an incredible match. But he and maybe, you know, maybe this will be a learning experience. I mean, everybody, I heard from guys that were there that, like, when that spot happened, everybody was thinking about Yoshitatsu, whose career was nearly ended with a broken neck. When AJ Styles gave him the Styles Clash and his head was in the wrong position, and, you know, it looked horrible, and it turned out to be horrible. He was out for like a year, and, you know, that's what they were thinking. You know, and even, you know, people who are not worried about the match itself. I was worried, but I worry in every Will Ospreay match that's big because I just know the lengths that he goes. I wasn't worried. I can't say I was worried in the Liger match at all, or the match with Adam Brooks that I saw, which was phenomenal last week. Even though he did a lot, I mean, he did a lot, and some of it was dangerous to a degree, but nothing concerned me. It wasn't that. It was like typical. He's doing so much. How long is it going to last? Doing so much. But this one, and it wasn't just that spot, but there were a couple of spots. But that spot alone, when he did that, I thought, like, you know, when the doctor's out there, I'm going, like, stop the match. Just freaking stop the match. And perhaps that was the right move to do. But he told the doctor he was fine. He told the referee he was fine. And he was doing everything. He wasn't limping. He you know, I don't know what to say. You know, it was, but man, that's what happened. It was very concerning. And he's got, I don't know if it's 7, 8, or 9 matches. He told me the number. Like you know, when I asked him how many matches do you got for New Orleans, and I think he told me 8. I think that the odds are strong that he will not be doing any matches this week in New Orleans. He still wants to. It obviously depends on what the doctor says, but I just can't even imagine. I shouldn't say I can't imagine, but I do think that from hearing from him, and he's also emailed all the different promoters he's working for to kind of say, like, you know, there's a good chance. He didn't pull out, but he kind of gave him the word that there's a solid shot he's going to pull out. And my impression is it's probably more likely than not that he won't be wrestling. He's still booked on the whole next New Japan tour, which starts mid, you know, like about a week after, I think is the date. And who knows if he'll be ready by then. And he's supposed to wrestle Kushida for the championship, which, you know, on paper is another incredible match. So that's the update on Will Ospreay. I don't know. You want to talk more about that?
Well, I'll be the guy. I thought that match was, like, it was an awesome match, but the one thing that just drove me crazy about that match, and I feel bad for the guy, like, I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but the first 60% of the match, ironically, given what happened later, the whole match was about working over his neck.
Yeah.
And
wasn't that a weird coincidence?
Yep, he gets a draping DDT, and Scurll goes to work on his neck. And Ospreay's selling the neck. He's just doing a great job. Like, every time he tries something, Scurll cuts him off, goes back to work on the neck. It's great. It's awesome.
You know what else? What else was amazing is that, like, he sold so well that I was, like, worried about his neck.
Yeah, but it wasn't real. So then...
some of that stuff looked real to me.
So then, he goes out on the apron, and they do the Spanish fly off the apron spot, and he crunches his neck in the most horrifying manner possible. The first time you see it from an angle where you can't actually see him hit the apron. It looks like they pulled it off.
That replay, oh, scary looking.
They show it in a replay, they show in slow motion, and his neck just, like, His ear touches his shoulder. His body weight comes down. It's the most brutal thing you've ever seen. So, the thing that drove me nuts, I mean, besides the fact that the guy nearly killed himself, is when something like that happens, in a match where you've already been working on the guy's neck for like 60% of the match, the very first thing that he did after that, he got into the ring before Scurll got into the ring, and he started his huge comeback. Why? Because he wasn't supposed to hit his neck, and the whole idea of the spot was to do a Spanish fly off the apron, and even though he nearly killed himself, because it wasn't in their plan, he fired up and made a huge comeback after he looked like he nearly killed himself.
Well, he tried to pretend it didn't happen.
Why would you try to pretend you didn't nearly kill yourself when you almost killed yourself?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
He's flying around. He's jumping around. His head's all busted open because he landed on the thing. And it's just kind of like, you know, that did not lead directly to the finish. They went back to working on his neck. Can you just, like, sell the neck? You almost killed yourself.
Well, he did. He did later, but yeah, you're right.
They could have just cut out that big comeback he did, kept having Scurll work over the neck, and then do the comeback. And the other thing, which I hate to nitpick the match because it was like a tremendous match, but there's a spot where he goes for a shooting star press off the apron. He nearly breaks his neck. He like his he's bleeding everywhere. Gets back in the ring, and Marty Scurll hits him with a pile driver right onto his neck, and he starts stomping on his face. You've got Kevin Kelly, Don Callis, and what's his name?
Rocky Romero.
Rocky Romero. They're all out there doing commentary. They're all screaming at the referee to stop this match. And as a fan, it's like, okay, this is beyond, like, ridiculous. Like, this guy's dead right now. He should be dead. The match just kept going, and then he won with an os cutter.
Okay, so the thing is the announcers probably did go, because I was thinking the same thing when he's stomping, that, okay, this has got to be the finish, do a referee stoppage. And it would have been a great finish. The only problem is that wasn't the planned finish, and, you know, the title wasn't supposed to change hands, and they'd already set up the angle where he was going to challenge Kushida, and Kushida was already there at ringside doing commentary. And so they don't want to change. He doesn't want to change, and everybody be all confused if they stopped it. The announcers were playing up stop it, because to build up for his comeback from the dead. That was the whole part of the story of the match. It just was.
I know, but like as a viewer, I don't want to sound. I know I sound like I hated the match, and I absolutely did not hate the match. But he took a pile driver on the floor. He took a tombstone pile driver on the floor. 2 pile drivers in the ring. He almost broke his neck on the apron. He's getting stomped in the head, and he's just bleeding everywhere. And then, like, he hits one os cutter and wins. It was just. There were things about the match where I cannot say it was the best match I've seen all year. I mean, it was an unbelievable match. Don't get me wrong. And it's kind of something similar to what you said. If you had taken like 3 things out of this match, I mean, it would have been like significantly better to me. But they had a plan, and that's what they did.
That was the plan of the match. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the reason, again. If he was feeling it at that moment and said something was wrong, I mean, the doctor was right there to stop it. I mean, which would have changed the plans and everything like that. But stuff happens in wrestling, and sometimes you have to do it. So, I mean, a lot of people are going like, you know, why didn't the doctor stop it? Why didn't the referee stop it? It's because he said he was fine, and you got to go with the idea that what the guy says, as bad as it looks.
Well, sure. And I mean, my main criticism is not even so much it wasn't stopped. It's just that this sounds completely ridiculous if he ends up having a serious neck injury, but...
And he very well may.
And he very well may. When something happens like that in a match, I mean, it sounds completely ridiculous, and it actually is ridiculous, but that is fortuitous. When something like that happens in a match where you've been working over a guy's neck for...
I can't say that was fortuitous.
Well, you know what I mean. Like...
The blood was...
When something like that falls into your lap, I mean, you got to go with it.
Agreed. 100% agreed. The blood was fortuitous. I mean, the blood made it...
I mean, none of these injuries were fortuitous. But you understand what I'm saying. Like, when something falls into your lap in a performance like this, like, go with it as opposed to going with your plan when if you go with your plan, it suddenly makes no sense.
Agreed. Yeah,
so that's my thoughts on the match.
Yeah. So I would agree with you.
But until he nearly killed himself, I was like, this match is unbelievable.
These guys are so freaking. But I mean, still, even before that happened, there were like 3 things in there that just concerned me a lot, and I was already worried. I know, like I heard other people, and they weren't worried until that one spot. And that happens in every Ospreay match anyway. Where I just not everyone, but the real big, the one like with Hiromu, those ones where they're just where they're just out there, just, they're just giving it their all and then some, and they're going to kill themselves is too strong of a word. I almost hate to use the word kill yourself because they really may. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there have been things that we have seen in these matches that everybody has ended up fine. But I mean, we've seen people really badly, seriously injured with the exact same things.
Look, Shibata seriously could have died. I mean, real seriously could have died. I mean, so there are, there's limitations to what you should be doing out there, and they are crossing the line at times. I mean that one pile driver thing in the Kenny Omega Naito match, and that DDT on the post. I mean, those were scary, scary spots. Now they were fine. They weren't hurt that bad. I'm sure they were hurt a little bit, and they didn't let on. But look, they're still wrestling, and they're not, they're okay. They're both great. I mean, they're both having great matches all the time. So, but it's like there's I still think that they're risking temptation too much in some of this stuff, and it really, really concerns me, especially because again, these guys were, these 2 guys could have an incredible match in their sleep because they're so good with each other without, I mean, yes, there still do risks, but normal Will Ospreay match stuff and normal Marty Scurll match stuff. I mean, they're so good together. They've worked together for years. They have they're very comfortable with each other. But I mean, the whole thing, they wanted to go over 30 minutes, and they wanted to have the match of the year, I mean, because somebody else probably has it. So that's the lengths they went. It's just, I don't know what else to say. And then we watched that Okada-Zack Sabre match, which I thought was also phenomenal. And that match was as safe could be. But it was absolutely phenomenal.
It was pretty much as safe can be.
And it was brilliant. I mean, that spot where Okada threw the drop kick and he turned it into the STF was one of the best spots that I've ever seen, because you didn't even see it coming. And it's never happened. Okada's drop kick he always hits it or he'll miss it like a pro wrestling miss. I've never seen the guy pull the foot out of the air and turn him into an STF. I was just like, holy crap. And there were spots like that throughout that match. And that was like a 34-minute or so match. I don't know the exact times, but both of those matches were really long, and neither of them felt long. I mean, I couldn't believe how long they were. Like they felt like much shorter than they were, but they're just because they were so well paced. But yeah, I thought like 2 of the best matches of the year on that show.
Well, the Okada-Sabre match, Okada won, Rainmaker for the pin, and the story is the same as every Zack Sabre match in the New Japan Cup, which is he has a submission counter for everything. And
every move that the guy, every Okada move that he got him in a submission from every one of them. It was like so brilliant. And it was the other thing about Okada, when we talk about Okada being the best in the world and everything like that. And every time I see a match like this, I'm even stronger in the belief, not only is he the best in the world, but he is, I don't want to say the best of all time because that carries a lot.
I will.
I know you've already said that, but he is one of the best of all time without a doubt. Because he's in, it's like Ric Flair was one of the best of all time. But Ric Flair, it was like, you worked the Ric Flair match. Okada works so many different styles.
He works
of matches.
everyone else's match.
Yeah, I mean, it's like...
Which is ironic because that's the exact opposite of what the story of this actual match was.
Yeah, but he... Like this match was complete... Like, even a Suzuki match, which has a lot of submissions in it, this was completely different from an Okada-Suzuki match. This was completely different from Okada and Kota Ibushi, or Okada and Tanahashi, or Okada and AJ Styles. It's like, you put him in there, or Will Ospreay, or whoever, everyone, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega. It's like, this guy, you throw in Bad Luck Fale, who's the only one he doesn't get unbelievable matches with, but he gets good matches out of him too. This guy goes in there, and anyone who is a good wrestler, Okada's going to go in there, and he's going to have, like, the best match of the guy's career, or close to it, with almost everyone. I mean, or arguably close to it. Yeah, I mean, like with Tanahashi, I can't say, I don't know that he's had the best match of Tanahashi's career, but he's had, of Tanahashi's 10 best matches, he's probably had 5 of them. Suzuki's best matches, he's probably had maybe the best, certainly some of the best of Suzuki's career. Cody's best match of his career, I think, was with Okada. Ibushi's had better matches with other people, but not much. Ospreay's had better matches with other people, but his was right there with any of them. I don't know if of all the matches, I've seen a lot of Zack Sabre matches. I thought this was the best one I've ever seen. So there you go.
So the story of this match is, you cannot beat Zack Sabre Jr. out grappling the guy. And in the New Japan Cup, he sucked everybody into his style of match. And even Tanahashi's out there trying to out-grapple Zack Sabre Jr., and everybody fails. And the story is, you can beat Zack Sabre Jr. using professional wrestling. However, he counters everybody's professional wrestling into a submission. And so Okada here, they did do some grappling early, but I guess part of the story is Okada trained in Mexico.
They did a lot of grappling. Yeah, the story. Yeah,
yes, Okada has a background in lucha libre. And so he was fighting Zack Sabre using his submissions that Zack Sabre is unaware of.
The lucha libre submissions from Negro Navarro.
That's right.
I thought that played. What a great story that was. Because Okada never does that stuff, but in this match he did, and they talked about, like, one of his original trainers was Negro Navarro, and a lot of people don't know Negro Navarro, who's an all-time great and just a submission master of wacky lucha submissions.
That's right.
Not shoot submissions, but they're professional wrestling submissions.
So he was playing Zack's game, but he was playing it with a different style, and he was catching him in things. So then, of course, Zack takes over, and it's the usual Zack Sabre Jr. match. Everything Okada tries, he counters into a submission. Everything he tries, he counters into submission. And then, the overall story of the match is, because Okada is the best wrestler in the world, by the end of the match, he was countering all of Zack's submissions into professional wrestling moves, including the Rainmaker and the Tombstone. And after 3 Rainmakers, he ended up getting the pin.
Neckbreaker over the knee and all that. But they did the spot where, I mean, he did get the Rainmaker, but he needed more than one Rainmaker because his arm had been worked over so much that he didn't have the normal Rainmaker power. And one of the times he went for that Rainmaker, Zack turned into a flying armbar like what Nakamura did to Okada at the G1 or I think it was the G1. But one of the Nakamura-Okada matches, which was just this awesome spot, and he did that. But the drop kick into the heel hook into the STF was just incredible, and there were probably 10 of those things. But it
was a masterpiece.
Like, I'm watching this, and absolutely. The other thing is, watching this is like, even though he lost, Zack Sabre, I think he gained in losing this match as much as his other wins. I think Zack Sabre is like, to me, he's like the modern Billy Robinson, and that's essentially what he was trying to bring back. And I mean, one of the storylines of the matches were that, New Japan used to have Fujiwara and Maeda and people like that, Karl Gotch. They used to have some of the greatest submission guys in the world, and his big thing is that now no one's doing that, and he's going to bring that game back. I mean, I guess Suzuki does it, but Suzuki's a different kind of thing. But I think that like to me, it's funny because it's like, if we're going to go like wrestler of the year, the year's 3 months old now, and Zach's in the running. I mean, and maybe even number one. I mean, there's about 6 guys that I would probably like legitimately give thought to for that. Zach, Okada. Of course, Will Ospreay, of course, because I had seen Will Ospreay with the Junior Heavyweight Championship and going all over the world having these kind of matches, maybe Omega. I mean, Omega hasn't been put in the position. He's certainly having great matches. When he had the match with Jericho and everything, I don't see, it's like people are going like, how come I didn't say Omega when I put the thing on Twitter? And I really, like, for the wrestler of the year, I mean, he could, like, if he were to win the IWGP title, that would probably boost him into that running. But right now I see like it's the guys who I really see the real candidates: Okada for sure, Suzuki for sure, Zach and Will Ospreay, I think, would be the ones that I would favor, and Zack Sabre might be the guy. I mean, just this last run of what he's done everywhere, and but even if he's not, it's like before, it used to be the big, the big four. It's Naito, Omega, Tanahashi, and Okada, of course. And I think Zack Sabre and Suzuki right now are right there with like a big 6, and then there's a couple other guys that are on their heels for different reasons. Even Cody Rhodes and Kota Ibushi are right on their heels. Cody, people are going to get real mad saying that, but he's a freaking superstar out there. I mean, he's not the wrestler they are, but he's the Tully Blanchard. You know what I mean? He's the spark that does stuff, and in the whole, all of these angles and everything. So I mean, I think that you look at Ring of Honor setting its attendance record, which they're going to do this coming Saturday night, and just the whole Young Bucks, Omega, and Ibushi match. I mean, that Cody's really the catalyst of that split up, which led to that match. I mean, that guy's extremely valuable for what he's done. And I keep thinking maybe someone from WWE, but I don't know. Who could...
Dude, we're only in April. We got plenty of time.
Yeah, someone might show up, but we'll see.
Let's start at the beginning for this show.
Okay.
I saw from the Suzuki match on, so...
Okay. So open. It's Young Bucks against Yoshihashi and Yujiro, and they started out like they were friends, and then Yujiro and not Yoshihashi, Chase Owens and Yujiro. And then Yujiro and Chase Owens jumped them when they were trying to shake hands, and so the Bucks ended up being like the baby faces. And Matt's hurting. He's working like he's hurting. He's doing some stuff, more than enough. And every time he does something, he's hurting. And Nick is, again, just phenomenal. Great with the kicks, great all over. It was actually a real good match. It ended up with Matt got the sharpshooter on Chase Owens. Then Nick did an over-the-top facebuster and his tornado DDT on Yujiro on the floor, and Chase Owens tapped out, so it was good. Then in the only match on the show that was less than good, and it was still not bad, was Ishii and Toru Yano beating Taichi and Takashi Iizuka. It was not too long. It was all action. It was not boring for a second. There was not a boring moment on this show, honestly. This was one of the... I could argue this was the best show of the year. This blew away the PWG show I saw last week, which I wouldn't have even thought was possible. It was better than the Long Beach show. But Ishii and Yano won when Ishii clotheslined Iizuka and Yano schoolboyed him. And it was all, it was a fun match. Ishii and Yano were an entertaining team. Yano's kind of over. They really put over how much Yano was over in Long Beach. And Rocky Romero had this great line about Taichi because they were trying to go like, oh, Taichi's doing better. And like all the guys, like Taichi's got good timing and he's got some talent and he's got a little bit of charisma as well. But it's like, as far as like New Japan guys, I mean, like they're the old guys who can't do a lot like Tenzan or Nakanishi, but they work really hard. And the feeling on Taichi is that he doesn't. And Rocky goes like, the one thing about Taichi is he's less lazy now that he's a heavyweight, which I thought was a really interesting way of putting it. But yeah, the match was like better than it sounded, as far as just a fun match. Then Trios Championship, Tama Tonga Tangaloa, Bad Luck Fale beat Michael Elgin, Ryusuke Taguchi, and Togi Makabe. It was guns done by Tama Tonga, pinning Taguchi, and the match was fine. It was, your Taguchi did his spots. Elgin and Tangaloa were doing like collision spots. Fale was doing his power spots. The crowd was very into the match, so fairly hot. Tonga was busted open over the left eye. He would hardly be the only person who would end the night with busted open over an eye. I think there was like three big ones, Ospreay and Cody being the other two. Then Tanahashi, David Finlay, and Juice Robinson beat Jay White, Yoshihashi, and Hiroki Goto. And the story of the match here is that Tanahashi's got to go back up. So we had Tanahashi back up. This was a 9-minute match. And all action, good match. I would say pretty much everyone looked good. Finlay looked better than usual. Juice looked better than he usually does. Tanahashi, when he was in, I mean, he's good. He's great. Looks good. Did whatever he needed to do. I'm trying to think. Goto had 5 stitches from the Long Beach show. Then the finish was Tanahashi at the sling blade and the high fly flow on Yoshihashi. And there was a lot of, the key stuff was Finlay against Jay White and Goto against Juice Robinson. A lot of interaction there. And so that was that. It was exactly what it was meant to be.
We had the Lance Archer and Davey Boy Smith Jr., and Minoru Suzuki versus Evil Sanada and Naito. And typical New Japan booking, you had Smith and Archer versus Evil and Sanada, Naito versus Suzuki. There's this wild brawl out in the crowd with Naito and Suzuki. Suzuki destroyed him with some chair shots out there. Archer terrorized a child.
I didn't like that, but some people loved it.
He's screaming at this child. This child's child's screaming in hysterics. Dad's laughing.
Yeah, no, that was like, I know some people thought it was like the coolest heel thing, but that child was like traumatized.
Yes. Archer's lucky that Dad didn't punch him.
Yeah, man. I don't know, but Archer, I like Archer ring entrance. He's got a lot of color. I thought that Davey Boy Smith Jr. wrestled really, really well. He wrestled really well in this match. Sonata, I thought, was just great. Just freaking great. And, Suzuki and Naito were Suzuki and Naito. They were telling their story, to build up their match.
Sonata made a great comeback. Suzuki tried to get a tag, but Naito yanked him off the apron, so they brawled outside. Suzuki put him in a knee bar. And then Archer and Smith hit Evil with the killer bomb, got the pin, beat the champs, so obviously that match is coming up. It was good.
Yeah, so Naito then challenged Suzuki, and Suzuki was answering back, and they were going back and forth. And they ended up brawling again. Suzuki threw a chair at the knee of one of the young boys. Naito must have, somewhere in this brawl, Naito looked like he hurt his right knee a little bit. I mean, he was walking kind of weird on the way back. It wasn't a sell. This was like just weird. You could see his kneecaps didn't. His knee seemed loose, and he's had a lot of knee problems already. So I didn't see that as a good sign. But I thought the match was real good, all action. Made you, at the end, what you wanted to think when it was over. So you wanted to see that tag title match, and I did, because Sonata and Smith were so good. And I wanted to see the singles match because it's Suzuki and Naito, and they're big stars.
We had Yoshinobu Kanemaru and Desperado versus Sho and Yo, and Hiromu Takahashi and Bushi. Three-way IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles. You had Rocky Romero out there, and at first he jumped the rail and Hiromu chased him and he ran for his life, so obviously building up something there. They beat on Yo forever. Finally got the hot tag to Sho.
That Sho is such a good wrestler.
Ran wild for everybody. And broke down to a six-way. Yo suplexing guys all over the place. The deadlift Germans. Bushi threw Romero into the ring. Hiromu stomped all over him. We had this crazy triple German sunset flip powerbomb spot, which had three guys. One dude did the sunset flip off the top. Three guys Germaned. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And Bushi did a tope on Sho. Hiromu hit the time bomb, but then Kanemaru pulled the referee out of the ring. And then Desperado laid out everybody with belt shots. Hit the Angel's wings on Sho. Ref got back in the ring, countered the pin. Pretty good match. A lot of interference there at the end, but that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, it was good. Good stuff. Hiromu's fantastic, and he was under control too.
Yeah, nothing too crazy.
Yeah, under control, and just he's so quick and so charismatic. I mean, he's just a freaking superstar too.
And then the only other match to talk about is Cody and Hangman versus the Golden Lovers. And Golden Lovers ran wild early, went for the Golden Triangle, but got cut off.
Blocked. Yeah.
Yep, Stereo Frankensteiner's outside. Finally, heels laid him out with chair shots, went to work. Omega got the hot tag. Hangman cut him off. They got a table out from underneath the ring.
Didn't it feel like Ibushi was... I'm not saying... Ibushi was really good in this match, but it didn't feel 100% Ibushi. I think he was feeling the effects of last week's match.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean...
Omega had a black eye. He's feeling a lot better. Every day his eye is better, so I don't think it's a broken orbital. It wasn't swollen shut or anything like that, but he still had a black eye, and he was working really good, but... my takes on this match, number one, is Hangman Page is going to be a superstar. He's not there yet, but the improvement in him, I mean, he's in this match with top guys. This is the semi-main on a big show, and he is holding his own, and he is doing great things, and
he's got to get his personality over.
But it's much better than it was even a couple months ago. It's not all the way. Like he's not all the way there. It's like Flip Gordon, who's a long ways away in one way, but probably is going to make it as well. But and freaking Cody he's just incredible. I'm not necessarily, but you know what? Even like moves and stuff, he was great tonight. Granted, like he's working with Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi, so you're going to be good if you're a good wrestler, you're going to be great with those guys, and that's kind of what happened. But Page, I thought Page was really, really good hanging with them. This is a long match that didn't feel long, and a lot of great stuff in this match. And Cody ended up he was bleeding like crazy too.
Yeah, Omega hit a spin wheel kick, and the camera actually missed it, so. Yeah. I don't know what happened, but Cody was brutally busted open. He's just bleeding everywhere. And the Lovers hit they hit the Golden Triangle, and then they did, in fact, go for the Golden Shower, which is apparently really what the name of the move is.
The Golden Shower is the double 450 off the top.
Yep. And
which they didn't do.
Broke down into a four-way. Omega teased the one-winged angel off the apron through a table. Second time in 2 weeks he's teased that on Cody, so I presume, inevitably, when he beats Cody, at some point, that's going to be the finish, which sounds completely nuts.
Well, when he was teasing that, Ibushi jumped to the top ropes and German suplexed Cody. Or was about to German suplex him. And then Hangman got underneath, and Cody ended up doing a springboard Doomsday Device dropkick. It was like just an incredible series of spots.
So Omega got booted through the table by Hangman, and then he distracted Ibushi. Cody grabbed Ibushi, rolled him up, grabbed the tights for the pin. So Cody pins Ibushi to set up the Cody-Omega match coming up at Supercard of Honor.
And also set up a Cody and Ibushi rematch in a couple weeks as well. You know what's funny is that usually when there's like a match that goes 25 minutes or so, and you do all these big moves, and then the heels win with Schoolboy with the tights, you go like, that sucked. But you know what's funny is like as soon as he did that, my thought is that's so weird because it's like you're supposed to have that reaction in this case. Because usually when you do it, it's like not any heat. But there was so much. But Cody is such a good heel that I thought that's like the right finish. And I hate that finish. And it's just like that's the exact finish. Because what are you going to do? He's going to beat Kota Ibushi with Crossroads. I mean, I'm not saying that's ridiculous, but it wouldn't have been as good. Pin Kenny Omega, probably not the right move because they're trying to protect Kenny. Kenny's got a lot of big matches coming up. So, you know, it's like a cheap way to do it, except when it's the right thing to do, which in this case it was the right thing to do.
All right, the New Japan lineups for some upcoming shows.
Okay, so they just announced about an hour ago the big shows over the next couple weeks. So April 24th at Korakuen Hall will be which we already knew because this was pretty much announced last week at the Long Beach show. Jay White against David Finlay for the United States Championship. April 27th in Hiroshima is Goto and Juice Robinson for the Never Championship. April 29th in Kumamoto is, let me see, I believe that's Naito and Suzuki for the Intercontinental, and Hiromu Takahashi and Kanemaru, Bushi, and Desperado. And there's a tag match, which Evil and Sonata and Smith and Archer, I believe, is on that one. So that's for the tag team championship. So then May 3rd, the two big ones are May 3rd and May 2nd, or May 3rd and May 4th, and they're in Fukuoka. And May 3rd is, let me see, Fale. Actually, I should just look this stuff up here rather than, hold on. All right, hold on. So, the May 3rd show has Kenny Omega against Hangman Page, Kota Ibushi against Cody, Tanahashi and Kushida against Will Ospreay and Okada, and then Naito's guys, Naito Evil Sonata, Bushi, Hiromu against Suzuki Sabre, Taichi, Kanemaru, Desperado. Then May 4th, which is the big show of the tour has Okada against Tanahashi. Okada going for the championship, the record, number 12. He's now tied the record with his title defense today makes 11. So he and Tanahashi are now tied. And so this is what everything has been building to for months and months. This is why he beat Naito. So anyway, Okada Tanahashi for the first time in a long time. Will Ospreay against Kushida, if Will Ospreay is okay. And then Omega, Ibushi, Fale, Tonga, and Tangaloa against Cody, Page, the Young Bucks, and Marty Scurll, and Naito, Evil, Sonata, Bushi, and Hiromu Takahashi against Suzuki, Archer, Smith, Kanemaru, and Desperado. So those are the top matches for the next month or so, for next 5 weeks for New Japan.
Right.
So it's interesting because, so presuming I just don't think it's the right move for Tanahashi to win. So then we're going into Dominion, which is really like, except for the Tokyo Dome, Dominion's really the big or, you could argue G1 Finals is just as big or bigger, but so Okada's going to need a big title defense, and they've been teasing Okada and Suzuki champion versus champion. The other thing is, if you look at the booking on this tour, there's like Omega's got the singles match with Page. I think that they're starting to get Omega ready for that championship match. So I could really see Omega going for the championship at the Cow Palace. I don't know this. I'm just looking, the way Ghetto books, and I see little teases that they may be going with that, combined with the fact that when I talked to Okada, he outright said, it's funny, which we'll get to in a minute, but he outright said that he wanted to wrestle Kenny Omega in the United States this year. And he also said that he didn't want to wrestle Tanahashi because Tanahashi lost in the New Japan Cup and it made no sense. And in fact, when Tanahashi came out, it was funny. So when Okada has beaten Sabre, and then after the match, they're doing, the challenges. And before anyone said anything, like Geto says, so who's next? The whole play starts Tanahashi, before his music plays anything. So it's like they already knew. It's like there were hints. There were hints, like with the thing a couple weeks ago and everything. But it's like all the stuff that we've been talking about how Tanahashi needs to be the guy in the match when he goes for the record. Every fan had figured that out, and they wanted that match. And then Tanahashi came out, and he got a huge reaction coming out, and the people were really jacked for that match. And then Okada does the thing of, you don't deserve this match because you didn't even win the New Japan Cup. I just beat the guy who made you submit, and you're hurt. You didn't beat Suzuki. What do you deserve the shot for? But and there's something to that. So I don't know. I never complain about Okada Tanahashi matches because they always deliver. It's probably the best modern feud, unless you say Okada and Omega. So, but Okada Tanahashi has a lot more longevity, because that's 2002 to the present.
All right, we got a couple of WWE notes to talk about. First off, Raw tonight, presumably, I guess anything's possible, Undertaker John Cena will be announced. And presumably. I don't think they've announced much else.
They announced Seth Rollins against Finn Balor in a singles match. They're going to do Stephanie and Triple H are going to confront Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle. So they're going to do the final angle there. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar are going to do something, which Roman Reigns needs to get something back, given that Brock Lesnar's destroyed him the last 2 weeks. I don't think he needs to get the full beating or the spear or anything like that. In fact, I would argue that he shouldn't. That doesn't mean that he won't. And if he does, if it's done well, it doesn't necessarily even mean it's bad. But he does need to get something in. So there'll be something along those lines. It's the last Raw. And there you go. There's something, we'll see. We'll see. because you had asked me, it was something really interesting. So you had asked me about, on the last show, about the idea of a TLC match with the Bludgeon Brothers Usos and New Day. And I guess I don't know, but when Triple H did the conference call, and I had asked him about, the Gargano thing, where if Gargano beats Ciampa, it's on the Saturday night card, then he's back in NXT, but if he loses, he's gone forever. And then at WrestleMania, it's Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan against Owens and Zayn with the exact same stipulation. And it was kind of like, it's kind of weird that you 2 straight nights with the same stipulation, same story, gimmick and everything. And the thing is like, in both cases, like they booked their stuff out NXT like a month ahead because they have to because of the way they tape TV. And WWE is always changing its mind. So his thing is like, when I can't change it because I'm already locked, and then they go and do the same thing. So that's kind of how he explained it. And then he said, I asked them if they were going to do a ladder match, and they said no. Now, there's nothing on this show, on the WrestleMania show, that's a ladder match. Now, I don't know. It sounded to me like he asked him a month ago about a ladder match, and now they're doing one, but they told him no. And he was, I don't say he's frustrated because he didn't come across. It's more, it is what it is, and that's just what it is. So if that gets announced, I guess that's what he was referring to. And if it doesn't, then there is no ladder match. There's only going to be a ladder match. There's only going to be 2 ladder matches on Saturday. One with on the Ring of Honor show with the Young Bucks and Flip Gordon against SoCal Uncensored, and then the other one will be the North American title 6-way ladder match. So, which will probably be unbelievably good with some of the guys that they have there. With, so there's that.
What did he have to say about Daniel Bryan?
Okay, so this is from an interview with ESPN. And he said, part of me was so afraid in the period of time when it was still going down that he was going to walk and say, forget it, and go wrestle for someone else that doesn't care, that doesn't take health into consideration, because that's pretty much everybody else, and risk his life and his health and his family and his baby and risk all of it. And it's not worth that. We take enough risk every day. We do every day. And he said there's a certain point in time when Daniel is not cleared by us, but he's gotten clearance from his team and his people and all his things. And I'm not sure he was already training and doing things. Maybe he was not taking bumps, but training and doing the things he wanted to do to get himself back in shape just in case this did happen. So while we're making him go to all these additional doctors and running more tests and doing all these things to ensure that everything was okay, he was preparing. So to their credit on this situation, what I will say is that if he was not cleared, if he was cleared or not cleared, either way, all right, if he was not cleared by WWE, he was going to start wrestling in October for Ring of Honor New Japan, okay? And he would be in exactly the same shape as he is today, but he'd be wrestling for them and not WWE. He'd be in no more danger than wrestling for WWE, wrestling for the other people. And if anything, he might be a little more healthier because he had 6 months more off to heal, roughly. 5 months more, actually. No, 6 months. 6 months more. October. Okay, so 6 months more off. Well, actually September. So it'd be 5 months more. So now, granted, if he was wrestling for Ring of Honor or New Japan or anywhere else, he's not getting impact testing after every single match. He wouldn't have to make that deal to get back in the ring, which he did. So that is a difference. However, as far as like the real safety for him, he's no more safer wrestling for WWE as anyone else. He's exactly the same safety. And I think that I think
Hunter would disagree with that.
Why?
I think that he would say that we restrict certain moves that we consider to be dangerous, and if he leaves his company, he will have no restrictions on what he can do.
Except his own, which is going to be the same either way. Did they stop him from taking that power bomb?
The power bomb?
The powerbomb on the apron. First day.
No. I'm just saying that
Powerbomb on the apron the first day. Okay, now here's the thing. You can say that, but here's the thing. Did they stop Shane McMahon from wrestling at WrestleMania? Did they stop Dean Ambrose from working for months with a torn tricep? Did they stop Kurt Angle from wrestling against Brock Lesnar? It's like, you cannot give me that holier than thou stuff. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like they're trying to do this thing. Did they stop Ciampa when he had a blown out knee from coming back and ending up with 2 or 3 surgeries because he blew out his knee and came back and wrestled a phenomenal match 2 days later? It's like, you can't do that. I mean, like, you know, he can say that and everyone will buy it. And, you know, and again, there are guys who do stupid things. You know, Tanahashi came back too quick, obviously. Okay. But it happens in their company all the time. It happens in every company all the time. There's not a good guy and a bad guy in this. And I really thought that him saying nobody else cares. I know companies that were talking about Danielson when he was going to come in, and I know they were concerned because they talked to me about their concerns, and they probably knew more, or as much, if not more than, I don't say more than WWE, but they knew as much as WWE about his condition. And they were absolutely concerned. Would they have cleared him? There was debate, you know? So I think that, like, the whole, you know, but I think that they would have at the end because every doctor did. Every doctor did, but, you know, Maroon and, you know, for the most part, and one other doctor. And, you know, so I just, like, I really, it, you know, yeah, it bothered me, like, oh, he was risking life and limb and this and, you know, his child and this and that. And it's like, he's doing the exact same thing here. It's the exact same Daniel Bryan, because Maroon cleared him or didn't clear him. If he didn't clear him, and it could have gone either way, he'd have gone and he'd been the exact same Daniel Bryan working for somebody else. You know, the exact same dangers. You know, it's like if he came in there and they said, you know, you're going to have to work like Zack Sabre, which is his goal, by the way, is to learn from Zack Sabre and try to work like Zack Sabre and work better. But the reality is, his first day in, he took a freaking powerbomb on the apron. You know, it's like, you know, he did those drop kicks in the corner and landed. And, you know, that's what he's going to do. But he did it in WWE. That's what he's going to do everywhere. You know, it's like they didn't stop him and say, oh, no, you can't do this powerbomb. It's what he did. You know, and I don't know who suggested it. I don't know if it was he suggested it. I don't know if Kevin Owens suggested it. I don't know if the agent suggested it, but he did it. So I just, man, it just, at first, it's like I kind of thought where he was getting at. I know he's got to say it publicly, but, man, I'm not into the idea that, you know, it's any different. What greater risk was he taking? You know, again, if he didn't take that power bomb, I might not have even said this, but he did. So it's like, how do you say, oh, you know, we're everybody's looking out for him to a certain degree. Okay. Some more than others. I'm sure there's unscrupulous promoters out there somewhere who just think everyone's a piece of meat, and he might end up working for one of them, and whatever, it might be in a bad ring. And, you know, that could happen. I've seen it happen that on some of the indies, but he blanket said all of them. And that's not fair to the ones, you know, it's not fair to Ring of Honor. It's not fair to New Japan. In the case, in both of those cases, because both of them had concern and weren't just going to rubber stamp him. They probably would have taken him but if doctors would have said no, they're not going to go against their doctors either.
Charlotte.
She's back. I mean, you know, her situation was touch and go on Tuesday, but she worked, they did 6-mans, or actually three teams. So she was on all the house shows this weekend, so she's fine. And I mean, there was never any concern of her missing WrestleMania. And AJ actually worked singles matches this week with at the house shows with Baron Corbin, and they were regular matches, normal matches, good matches. So there's no concern. He's going to be, if not 100%, he'll be 95%, and they're going to tear the house down. They're going to have, I don't want to say they're going to have the best match at Mania, but if I was going to bet, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of matches at Mania that could be the best. But I think that they have as good a shot as any, if not the best shot.
And who was there for the Andre documentary?
There's a lot of people that the Andre thing. So I heard the Andre thing was, again, I haven't seen it. I'm actually hopeful that I'm going to see it in the next day or two, but I have not had a chance to see it. I did not go to the thing. I wish I could have, and I actually could have, but it just, things were a mess and I didn't go. So, yeah, Triple H was there, and Mark Henry and Big Show, and Vince Vaughn was there, and Gennady Golovkin was there, and Bill Simmons. Well, Bill Simmons was obviously going to be there, and Hulk Hogan was there. Vince McMahon was not there. So I was told it's great. I was told that there are a few historical things that I would probably end up talking about when it's over that may not have been. But it's Andre, and look, there's wrestlers telling the story of Andre. They tried. It's 30 years plus ago. Wrestlers don't have the best of memories. Some wrestlers are, some people in this movie that were talked to may not have the best of memories, may not be the most honest of people at every turn as well, and they're in there. So, you're going to have things. I think in the movie they go with the idea that Hulk Hogan didn't know the finish of the match when he went in the ring at the Silverdome, which is kind of weird. I kind of don't buy that, but he's been saying it for so many years, so maybe he even believes it by now at this point. But Hogan, I heard, was the star of the movie, and Vince was the other star of the movie. I heard they both were tremendous overall. Hogan's going to come out super babyface. I'm trying to think what other stuff as far as that movie goes. Andre's daughter was there. Carrie Ells was there from Princess Bride. I'm trying to think of any other celebrities that I could remember off the top of my head. But, it's big thing, big to do.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to wrap it up for today. Tomorrow, we'll be back to talk about the go-home show for WrestleMania and any other big news that has taken place. And we've got a lot of shows coming up. Got a lot of interesting things heading into Mania Week. The new back issue of The Observer will be up tomorrow. New issue, I presume, on Wednesday. And that is it. We will talk to you again after a while.